guys, Max and Hamish here. Today on this fine Monday, we are going to be bringing you a review of Doctor Who Storm Warning. Okay, so this episode was released, or not episode, but story was released in January.
4 episodes, in fact.
Yes, it was released in January of 2001, and it's part of the monthly or main range, and it was written by Alan Barnes, who's written some other 8th Doctor main range stuff, as well as co-writing Zagreus. Well, do you want to should we get into it, or do you want to say anything before?
No, nothing much. Just first Big Finish story to feature the 8th Doctor first use of the sonic screwdriver in a Big Finish story.
It introduces India Fisher as Charlie Pollard, and Paul McGann returns as the 8th Doctor.
Yes.
Yes, just thought I'd put that out there.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Okay, I think that's about it.
Yeah. So should we just get into the plot?
Yeah. So, we start off in the time vortex where the Doctor's just kind of, he's cruising. And
we should mention, he mentions going on adventures with Mary Shelley, and technically you're meant to, those are said before Storm Warning, but we're lazy, so we didn't do them.
Yeah.
We'll do
it in release order. Yeah, they are. Yeah, so basically...
Bloody $13 each for bloody Mary Shelley.
Shit a brick.
So we just watch an episode of Doctor Who for free.
So we start off in the time vortex where the Doctor's just kind of cruising in his TARDIS, and then he notices that these sort of time vortex pterodactyl dudes are attacking this smaller ship. So he
they're called Vortisaurs, by the way.
Vortisaurs, yeah, I've got that written down, but I just wanted to describe it to the audience.
If you're the kind of listener that will get annoyed when we call them space pterodactyls, there you go.
I think I said time vortex pterodactyls, yeah, if we're being specific, also.
Oh, sorry.
Fucking donkey. Sorry. Well, basically, yeah, he thinks, I'm a bloody genius, I'm just going to fly my box at them and they'll be fine. So he does that, being the rational man that he is. He flies his TARDIS at them, they disperse, and then he lands in October 30th, 1930, on the Royal RO1 airship, which is on its maiden voyage. So,
yes.
What happens then?
So
basically...
There's a bit of bloody subtle foreshadowing where... the ship's designer's this is probably going to crash, and the Lord Tamworth's nah, she'll be right.
It's a bit like the Titanic, you see. Except, they didn't say it's going to sink. They were it's unsinkable. So you see, this is like an opposite day scenario here. When I say Titanic, I mean the film Titanic, by the way. Not the boat, who cares? So basically, we meet Charlie Pollard, who is a stowaway on the ship.
Yeah.
And Doctor Number 8 sort of fades in, or materializes in his box.
Just fades in?
Yeah.
You got into the room, just
Yeah. He comes out, and then he's he does a bit of walking around and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, classic Doctor stuff.
Yeah, which translates well onto audio, obviously. And, yeah, so do you want to take it from here, Holton?
Oh, yeah, so bloody... so some randos there's some extra weight in the ballast tank, so they just eject the TARDIS, which is a bit of a bummer.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. Don't you remember that?
Oh, and he puts it into the...
No, it's just flying out into space. Not into space, but into the air to crash in France or something.
I don't think so.
It does.
Well, then how do they go back to it at the end of the episode?
They fly out on Ramsey.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I haven't watched this in a week.
I listened to it less recently than you did.
Yeah, you've got TARDIS Wiki up, son.
Yeah, well, so it's just a refresher.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Anyway.
Apologies, audience. So the TARDIS gets it's gone. And so then gets yeeted off. And then there's sort of a bit of investigation about how there's this weird woman in room 8 or whatever number it was who's got a weird...
Cabin 43.
Cabin 43. Not even a room. So and she's got some sort of weird breathing apparatus around her head.
Oh yeah. And
they're what's this?
Max's favourite character.
Oh.
Expecting it.
Yeah. My best mate, bloody, what's his name? Donkey? Rathbone, that's it. And so, yeah, he's there. And he talks a bit like this, and he's like, oh, doctor. And it's really
South African.
Yeah, well, He sounds like he's from Lakemba, but yeah, he's just a bit irritating. Wouldn't you agree? Would you agree that he's a bit irritating?
I mean, it was kind of a fun voice to listen to.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, well, just me.
Anyway,
I'm always racist.
And then like one of the bloody time vortex pterodactyls like crashes.
I think they're called
window,
vortisaurs, Hamish.
Like crashes through the window and like grabs Rathbone and he's like, "Oh, Mike."
He's like, "Get off me, cuz."
Yeah, and that's like the end of part 1.
Yeah. We don't really need to do it in parts, do we? We can just talk about the story.
I don't know. I was giving them a sense of how the time is being used in this story.
Anyway, and then the Doctor like meets Charlie, and he's like, "Oh, hi," and they sort of. You can do the talking of this episode. I've got a fuzzy memory.
So they hear like Rathbone like screaming in his South African accent,
which is like.
So they run in, and the Doctor like saves him, and then they see the woman who's in the apparatus, and they're like, "Mate, who's this?"
And he's like, "Oh, no one." And then it's like, "Well, it's clearly someone because there's a person lying in the bed."
And the Doctor like kidnaps the Vortisaur as well.
Yeah, he like just puts it in a bag or something, doesn't he?
Well, that's not quite.
Puts it in his backpack. Just leaves it in there. Like I did to my dog when I took it to school. Yes. No, I didn't do that. But he just sort of, he kidnaps the Vortisaur.
Yeah, and to explain there being the Doctor and Charlie like pretend that they're spies for another company on the R101.
Yeah, because Rathbone is Secret Service, and then they say that they're German spies.
Yeah.
Don't they? Yeah, and he's like, he's like, "Oh, I'm Johann Schmidt," which is a nice little Marvel reference. You see?
I don't think it's a reference to Marvel, but sure.
Well, Johann Smith's
the German version of John Smith.
Anyway, so I don't know. I just Johann Smith's a bit of a.
Also, we should mention that when we say that they're German spies, I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean that they're like Nazis. I think they're just like spies for a German company.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're not Nazi because it's 1930. This takes place. And the Nazis weren't really international by that point. They were very much German-based because we know we know what we're talking about, you say. But anyway, so
change the subject.
I don't like those people. They didn't do much that was good.
Anyway, so the Doctor like unmasks the alien, and
she's like grey.
That's an alien.
Yeah, she's like grey, and she's like
So some random alien woman.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I've got people coming to pick me up."
Yes, and would you like to do the Rathbone voice?
We are here for a diplomatic trip, you see, and we're doing it because we like the aliens, cuz.
Anyway, and then an alien spaceship just like a rat.
Yeah. How did you picture this? How did you picture this ship in your head, the spaceship?
I just pictured it as like a flying saucer.
But like the inside.
Oh, the inside. Oh, I didn't think about that.
What other characters were in there?
That's great because it was bad.
What other characters were inside for like the whole episode? You just thought of the outside of the ship. They're just in there. It's a long establishing shot with an audio channel over the top of it.
Yeah.
Things happening. Oh.
Actually.
Oh, well, I, for one, because I'm of an intellect, I thought that it was kind of... Shut up. I thought that it was very, like, it reminded me a bit of how Kamino and the Kaminoans looked in episodes. What was it?
Kaminoans?
That's so different. Yeah, I sort of felt like it was a bit Kamino-ish in design, probably. And, yeah, that's what that reminded me of, you see, because...
Good for you.
Yeah, I know. So up to this point, would you like to Halton, how have you found the episode up to this point?
So the episode up to this point has been pretty good.
Yeah, it's been a solid 8.
Yeah, I was enjoying it.
Yeah, it's good setting. Felt a bit it felt kind of a tiny bit sort of something like one of the Series 11 historicals.
You reckon?
Yeah, it gave me sort of Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror kind of vibes.
It kind of reminded me of like your classic sort of new series. The Doctor shows up and there's like something that's going to happen, but he can't prevent it, like Fires of Pompeii or like even Waters of Mars.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
No, Waters of Mars is bloody god tier. as you'll find out when you listen to our main show, and because we'll cover that definitely at some point very soon, in the next 46 weeks. And so basically, he turns up, he knows it's going to crash, and that's it's all good up to there. But then, ironically for Doctor Who, when the aliens are introduced, it falls apart. Do you want to try and explain the alien power structure and like the scenario with these aliens? Yeah.
So it's just like, it's kind of confusing, but basically the aliens are kind of like, so there's the engineers who are like the brains.
Yeah.
The uncreators, which are the instinct, and the lawgiver, which like
determines between the two.
Yeah.
Sort of the will of the creature, because it sort of all acts as one big organism, made up of lots of smaller organisms. So sorry. So yeah.
Awesome. So anyway.
Yeah. So
they're like,
that happened.
All the humans like go on board this ship to meet the Triskeli, which are what the aliens are.
Yeah.
And they're basically just trying to get a diplomatic deal done.
Yeah, but the aliens are like, no, Dr. Rathbone, we want you to come and like join us, and you can be the new lawgiver. And so he's just kind of like, So then Rathbone gets in a fist fight with him.
Yeah, your friend.
My good mate, bloody Rathbone, met him down at the pub and had a VB with chips last week. He bloody he got in a fist fight with this immortal alien. Well, not immortal, but very nearly immortal alien. And
we should mention that before that there's a bit where they were like raw.
Yeah, the doctor's like, these people won't respond to your physical efforts. Then it's just raw. And then 5 minutes later, he gets in a fist fight and wins. Yeah. So it's a bit weird.
Yeah, the like main villain just gets like shot, and then that.
Yeah, and then the story is that they sort of go back, having having screwed the pooch.
What's his face?
Rathbone.
Who goes with the Tamworth goes with the Triskeli.
Yeah, he sort of stays with them and becomes their lawgiver, doesn't he?
Yeah, and they just like go and fly off in their flying saucer.
Yeah, never to be seen again. And then basically what happens is kind of they go back, and then Rathbone's like, oh, I've stolen a gun from these alien people for the British Empire, which I'm not part of because I'm Southern African, but still, I've got your gun. And then the doctor's like, no, you can't have that gun. And he's like, oh.
He's like, yes, I can.
He's like, yes, I can. I'll bloody take it, son. And then he gets into kind of a brawl with the doctor, and one way or another it ends up with Rathbone causing the destruction of the airship. And we haven't really touched on Charlie, but that's because I'm saving her for the end.
So the doctor and Charlie escape on the Vortisaur.
Yeah, and the doctor has a bit of a moral dilemma as to whether he should take Charlie, because there was a certain amount of people everyone was meant to die on the airship, and Charlie wasn't meant to be there, so she was meant to take Tamworth's place. But he goes to tell her, and he's like, oh, Charlie, I've got something to tell you. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll travel with you, sure. And the doctor's like, fine.
It's like, yeah, alright, she'll be right.
Yeah, alright. But,
yeah. So, like, fly off on the Vortisaur to go and find the TARDIS.
Yeah, which,
And they named the Vortisaur Ramsay as well.
After the Prime Minister. Yeah, Ramsay MacDonald is the British PM of that time.
Ah, I see.
Yes. So, what did you think of the sort of the Doctor being the responsible Time Lord figure, which he's not really anymore in the new series to a certain extent? Oh, well, he or she kind of is. Well, they've always been sort of very much like that, but they haven't really been open about it, if that makes sense. They've just sort of kept it to themselves, but here he's just kind of very open and kind of, no, we can't do that.
At one spare showrunner, they're like, oh, but what if he didn't follow the... And they just do like a couple of episodes on that.
Yeah, like Waters of Mars and End of Time.
Yeah, and Hellbound.
Well, what's Hellbound?
Like Steel's Clara.
No, what's Hellbound?
Anyway,
and Timeless Children. It was an interesting first adventure for the Eighth Doctor. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was just fine.
I thought the first two parts and then the second half of part 4 were pretty good, but then
pretty good.
Part 3 was
if the good bits were good throughout, if throughout it was as good as it was in the good bits, it probably would have been like an 8 for me out of 10. But it just kind of was a bit weird and kind of it felt like we felt like they were too scared to just. It felt like they got in there, and they wanted to do like a pure historical with the Eighth Doctor and Charlie, with like maybe just the Vortisor. But then they got cold feet, and they just kind of had to put some aliens in.
Yeah.
And the whole alien locked in the room thing, weird passenger in the room, terror of the Vervoids, mate. Like, it's a bit of a shape from the Sixth Doctor story. So, and I feel like that's been done so many times.
About Terror of the Vervoids. It's been a second since I've watched it. Can you just check if this is true? That doesn't the Doctor like gas the Vervoids at the end?
Yeah, he does, and then the Time Lords are like, "Oh, you've committed genocide, Doctor," and it like crash zooms on his face.
Oh wait, no, that was the first time.
Yeah, first time.
Yeah.
And then it I mean, it's not really as bad as the Time Lords because like you don't actually there's like 5 of them, but like yeah, it's still a bit questionable. But then again, it is the same man who choked Perry not in a serious way. So yeah.
So what did you think of Charlie?
I like Charlie. She felt like a sort of natural progression in what?
No, nothing.
Oh. I liked Charlie. I like Charlie because she sort of felt like a natural progression in between Ace and Rose, with a bit of like Bill chucked in there, who's already pretty Ace-like, but different. She felt like a really good kind of Edwardian adventuress sort of character.
I think it's cool that we've got a companion that's like not from present day Earth.
Yeah, I mean
You don't see much of like how that changes things in this story, but in the next story, which I've already listened to, you get to see sort of how her viewpoint.
Oh, have you finished Sort of Orion? Have you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm still on part 2. Yeah, we'll be bringing that to you on bloody Friday, won't we?
Yes.
Be good stuff. Yeah. So, what did you think about the sort of Eighth Doctor's characterization in this story?
Yeah, good. I'm interested to see how his character develops over the Eighth Doctor adventures.
Yeah. I am a bit concerned that her and him and Charlie are kind of a bit too similar, because like they're both sort of have an Edwardian persona, and they're both kind of speak in the same kind of,
Yeah, I think
tempo.
She's a good fit for his Doctor, though.
She's a good fit. It's just
at this point in his life.
Yeah, because he sort of eventually becomes sort of more John Hurt-like.
Yeah.
Not when I say that, I don't mean he regenerates into John Hurt. I mean he becomes more sort of involved in war and dark.
Yeah, as we'll see once we get to the Time War stuff.
Yeah, if we get there. But yeah, it was decent. What would you give this out of a 10?
I would give it a 6.
I'd give it a 6.5.
Well, big man.
I don't have to compensate. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Sure.
Well, not pretty good. I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was fine. Wasn't.
I thought it was a fine start to the era.
Yeah, sort of Orion's hopefully going to be better.
Yeah.
Having listened to a bit of it. But
I won't spoil my thoughts yet on Sort of Orion. But
yeah, so anything else, Colton?
What do you think of the theme, Jim?
Well, I thought, having listened to future box sets, it didn't sound as good, but that's obviously because they don't have the technology yet to make it sound as good as it does for the War Doctor, for example, or...
I don't love the War Doctor's theme, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a bit messy, there's just a lot of stuff going on. It gets a bit lost.
Like the war.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why it's like
should be telling me it's a metaphor for how the persona of the Doctor is being lost among the War Doctor.
It's a metaphor for Hellbent, messy. Yeah. Because you see, he goes to the same barn that he did in Day of the Doctor, so, yeah.
I see.
It's linked.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Decent stuff.
Yes. First quarter of the first season of the Eighth Doctor done.
Yeah, we'll see you on Friday for Sort of Orion, which will hopefully bring you many treasures and sex. So yeah. Yeah, so we will see you on Wednesday with our first episode of the main show where we cover Vincent and the Doctor and while we're trying to convert a non-Who fan to being a Who fan. And then we'll see you again on Friday for the Sword of Orion. So, yeah, that should be good.